I would like to begin by acknowledging that we gather today in Port Townsend on the ancestral homelands of the Sklallam, Suquamish, Makah, Chimicum, and Tawama-Skokomish nations, as well as nations who met and traded in this area. Native peoples have cared for these lands from time immemorial and continue to do so today. Please join me in expressing our deepest respect and gratitude. Welcome to the Jurors Talk for Small Expressions 20 at Jeanette Best Gallery. My name is Kathleen Garrett. I'm the exhibits director at Northwind Art, and it is my pleasure to welcome all of you tonight and say hello, including to Jalisa Johnson, who is our juror of this 20th iteration of Small Expressions, which is a much beloved exhibit in our community. I'll be introducing Jalisa in more depth shortly. For this moment, I'll just say that she had and met and exceeded the challenge of choosing from more than 330 artworks brought in by 110 artists to result in the exhibit you're about to see in this walkthrough video. After Jalisa's talk, we'll announce the 4 awards she gave to artworks in the exhibit, 3 merit awards, and those awards are $250 each, and the Juror's Choice Award, which is $500. There will also be a People's Choice Award of $100 that visitors can vote on at Jeanette Best Gallery in person. So right now I will play the video of the walkthrough. It's about 5 minutes long. So sit back and enjoy. Okay, and we're back. You might have glimpsed some placards with merit awards, but we're still going to announce them. So from these 330 plus artworks, Jalisa chose 156 for the exhibition. And then Jay Haskins did his magic and designed a beautiful show for us. And now we get to hear Jalisa and how she approached the process and what kind of echoes and themes she saw. First, a bit about Jalisa. Jalisa Johnson is an interdisciplinary artist, educator, and arts administrator currently living in the Pacific Northwest. She holds a BA from Vassar College and an MFA from the San Francisco Art Institute. She's been the recipient of the AICAD Post-Graduate Teaching Fellowship, Centrum's Emerging Artist Residency, which is how we learned about Jalisa, Open Signal's New Media Fellowship, and an Artist Trust Fellowship Award. She has exhibited her work in cities along the West Coast, including San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, and she occasionally facilitates workshops and classes in new media and performance art. Jalisa also organizes public programs as programs lead in the Learning and Community Partnerships Department at the Portland Art Museum. Take it away, Jalisa, and thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathleen. And hi, everyone. It's really awesome to at least be in virtual space with you, to be in community with you here. I'm going to go ahead. I have a PowerPoint presentation with some images. It's a few installation shots as well as some close-ups, and I'm going to use the images to sort of guide my talk around my thinking and my process for during the show. So I'm going to share my screen. Please disregard if you see my very messy desktop. No mind. Okay. Awesome. Let me just make sure I've got my awesome. Okay. And just a few other little notes. If I say things kind of jumbled, it's just because I'm recovering from travel from yesterday. And I have 3 dogs that insist that they see things outside sometimes. So if they start barking, I apologize. Okay, so now that I've gotten that out of the way, I can go ahead and talk about my experience during this exhibition. And I really appreciate that Kathleen read my bio, just because I feel like positionality is so important. It's always important to sort of communicate where you're coming from and the lens that you're bringing to any project. That being said, the only thing I'll add and expand on is that in a lot of my work, I'm very much interested in materiality of the body. It's based in my practice as a performance artist, and I'm really attracted to nuance and vulnerability, works that feel sincere. And so I feel like that is the lens that I usually bring to my own work, and then also when I'm viewing others' work. And I think that helped to sort of set the framework for me as I was walking through and looking through over 330 works. And it was my first time putting together or curating any kind of curatorial experience in putting together an exhibition. I am currently studying to get my master's in curatorial practice, but I had not yet had the pleasure of putting something together. So this for me was really exciting. It was a lot of fun. It was definitely challenging, but I feel like it was a really good way to sort of begin to think about artists in conversation with one another, which is actually how I want to set the framework for this show. So I'll go to the first slide. When I walked into the room, into the gallery, and saw the amount of work, I definitely was sort of taken aback. And my process was a lot of circling the room. Like I circled and circled and circled and circled for, I think I was there for like 3 hours, if I recall. I think it was around that time. And revisiting works and walking away and revisiting and walking away. But something that happened in a lot of the circling and the coming and going and visiting with specific works and really sitting with like an artist's collection of work that they had submitted, was that I began to see conversations happening between different works. which was really exciting for me to be in a room where there's multiple dialogues happening between artists and being able to help facilitate those dialogues. This is in no way a COVID show. I wouldn't say this is like, this work's about COVID, but I would say that it's sort of dealing with some of the aftermath of connection, trying to connect, trying to facilitate conversation, trying to continue conversation during what has been a really rough couple of years for everyone in different ways. And within that, there were sort of certain themes that really sort of popped out to me, or that really sort of presented themselves. And I will say that I just want to again shout out Jay's work, because Jay did an exquisite job of hanging everything. I feel like we shared a brain or something in the moment, because some of the conversations that I was seeing and thinking about, he totally caught on to and totally articulated that in the way that the works were hung and placed together in relationship to one another, which I very much appreciate. So starting off with this install shot, there's a few works here that I just wanted to call attention to, but in particular, I want to look at this grouping of 3 works here, which I have a close-up here. So from left to right, the artists are Mel Christensen, COVID Haircut, Joan Ball, and I apologize if I mispronounce anyone's name, Joan Balzerini, Best Friends, and Gloria Lamson, Magic Happens. And I wanted to bring your attention here first, because these groupings right here, this work in particular, caused a reaction for me where I laughed. There was just something very quirky and humorous, and that's one of the themes that I saw a lot of artists playing with, is this idea of humor, and not necessarily a kind of humor that is like really obvious, but it's a subtle humor. It's a nuanced humor that sort of comes through in day-to-day experiences. And I would even argue that in some of these works, there's also a little bit of playing around with the uncanny, and I saw those 2 things crossing over. And right here, I see that. For example, I just kept coming back to the COVID haircut piece, because it really captures, it really captures the feelings of the humor and the sort of everyday, like something very, mundane, a haircut, right? But there's so much about this painting to me that really points to how unusual things are at the moment, but how the unusual has also become also the everyday. And how those 2, that line between, something that's unusual or strange can very quickly become assimilated into our everyday experience, and how we can become used to something that is, very odd experience for us all. And so I felt like that really came through in this work, with the masks being like the most obvious thing, right? But I feel like one of the things I was so drawn to, in addition to that, is the way that the arm comes out into the frame, and the way that the figure kind of leans. There's just there's a conversation taking place here in between the fragmentation of the bodies, and then that kind of leaning away, that it feels a little bit slightly uncomfortable to me. And the humor is there in that discomfort, that we're all trying to continue to live through this moment. And that, there are levels of it that are kind of laughable, but then there are also levels of it that are very serious and very difficult and challenging. And so I felt like this painting for me, it's like I just have a soft spot for this work, because I feel like it really captures a lot of the difficulties and challenges in a subtle way. So, that grouping of work and others in the gallery, that walkthrough also was gorgeous. And you saw a few different works that were really playing with form or playing with the human body in ways that were also kind of humorous. objects or sculptures in particular that sort of make funny faces, or just going back there, it's not here in this image, but there was like a painting of a couple in bed with the cat. There were also a lot of animals in the exhibition, and I, as you could tell, with 3 dogs plus a cat, I love animals. But there's also something about that tenderness there, and that's another theme in the show that I'll talk about a bit more in a bit more detail later. But I feel like that was built in by featuring animals and by featuring a relationship with them. And I also just wanted to call your attention to this work here, Best Friends. It makes me laugh because of the framing of someone's rear end, but then the dog and the focus on the dog, and the dog being the point of the painting and not necessarily the person, which is how I feel often when I see people on the street with pets. I immediately go to their animal. I introduce myself to their animal before I introduce myself to the human, which made me laugh. So I feel like there was a sensitivity in the work towards these very like subtle moments of interaction. And that was something that I'm really happy that was highlighted in the way things were hung. And then also this photograph here of Magic Happens is just like absolutely fabulous. And if you get to see it in person, just the expression on the person's face is priceless, because it definitely almost counters the peace sign and the floating in the air. It's sort of got this like, this person has this expression of almost what to me reads as being sort of over it a little bit. And so that's something else that, again, I find like a humor in that, just this sort of collective feeling of, I don't know, I think maybe it's a bit of exhaustion with the last 2 years, but also what's the word I'm looking for when you are just continuing forward. The word's escaping me right now, but perseverance, there we go. Also a perseverance. Okay. And then moving forward, I just wanted to show this really beautiful, part of the exhibition. There's several works in here that speak to the uncanny a little bit more. And oftentimes the uncanny is like very much tied to like, themes of like science fiction, like of robots or artificial intelligence, just that idea of recognizing something that's very familiar, but it's slightly off, right? There's something about it that makes it a little unfamiliar or a little strange, and it's hard to pick up on. And I feel like that is what we're living through right now. And I saw that in just like these slight gestures in different works. So for me, like even the teddy bear, there's this painting right here of a teddy bear, and the way the teddy bear is leaning. There's normally with teddy bears, there's a cutesiness that's sort of attached to it, but I feel like with this one, there's just this like very raw humanness that sort of comes through in the bear. And so it's those little moments that I was looking for in some of the works, or that actually really attracted me to some of the works. So here's 2 close-ups of 2 of the works that were on this wall. So there's one piece there and one piece there. And it's John Lizwinko. I very much apologize if I mispronounced your name. Fish Soup, and Peg Masters' Land of Mystery. And I absolutely also loved these 2 works. I'll start with Land of Mystery. As someone who's a performance artist, I love gestures, like just the slight way that somebody can tilt their head, or the way that somebody can hold their hands, or the way that somebody can lean towards you or away from you communicates so much. Body language to me is just so rich. And I love picking up on like slight movements or slight gestures. And even more, I love when people can take a movement and really freeze it, which is what's happening here in this mixed media piece. This sort of leaning and tilting of the head, which, when seen in context with the other work, there's also another work by the same artist. There's a feeling of like someone walking, but just this work alone, that sort of head tilt and lean to me felt so familiar, but also bizarre. The body looks a little strange to me in a way that made me think of like, or have this uncanny experience with it. And I think the title's telling, right? Land of Mystery, like we're meant to wonder a little bit about this gesture. We're meant to wonder about the repetition. And you know, that theme of wondering, I think also, you know, spills over into Fish Soup, which also has a lot of humor. This piece makes me laugh and like giggle in the best way. And I love how colorful it is. But also, yeah, the taking, you know, making the scene from this collage and all of these fish just bursting from this bowl to me, there's a little bit of the fantastical in there, the unreal. But finding ways to use the everyday objects, you know, things we're very familiar with to create and build up the unreal to me was something that was really interesting and something that I saw a number of artists working with in the exhibition. And so now moving on to this glass case here. There's a few works in here that really make me think about the idea of tenderness. And, you know, the funny thing is, like, I mentioned these themes of the uncanny and humor and tenderness, but they're in no way exclusive from each other. There's a lot of crossover and there's a lot of work that shares similar traits. But in this particularly in this glass case, there's a few works that really do deal with like a kind of delicateness. And one of the works is to the right here, by George Wilhelm, Woman's Torso Brooch. And there's just, again, I'm so interested in gesture and also fragmentation. So if you can isolate a gesture, that's what's happening here, just that, you know, sort of shifting, tilting of the chin downward. There's something so tender here. And what's interesting to me is that it's made out of a material that, you know, it's not a soft material, but it's there's such softness here, and like the sort of what's the word I'm looking for, like the moldability or like the softness of tissue, of body tissue, feels really present in this artwork. And that's something that, you know, I was also kind of looking for or keeping an eye out for artists that were able to call forth emotions that bring a softness through materials that actually could be quite the opposite. And this is also another work that's in that case by Jackie Mosley, White and Black Felted Bowl. I'm also, I love material. I love materiality. I've used that word so many times already in this talk, if you, as you've noticed. And any material for me. And I also work with hair a lot in my practice. So of course I was gonna like be really attracted to this work and the use of fiber and wool to really build up texture and to also build up a delicateness with the beads and with the hair, sort of the loose strands of hair here that sort of come out. These bowls feel really, and there's a few of them by this artist. I think there's two in the exhibition. The other one I don't think is looks exactly like this, though it looks different. But again, there's like a tenderness that's there. There's such care that comes through in the handling of material. And that for me is just very important, you know? I feel like that adds or helps build the sincerity in a work that feels honest and also is, allows for a kind of vulnerability, whether that be in the actual materiality of the piece or in the subject matter, or both. And this is also in that case. You know, obviously I'm very focused on that glass case right now. But this is by Paul Cucino, Turtle Caves. And these were just, and this is a smaller one, and there's another work by this artist that's a lot bigger. But I just love this work. I love the compartmentalization of the turtles. I love that they're in close proximity, but they're also kind of separate. And again, it just made me, I couldn't help but think about everything that people have been through over the last couple of years and not see that reflected here, not see that sort of relationship between the two little turtles, you know, present, but also a kind of distance. And to also find a lot of beauty in that, as well as the tenderness between the materials, right? So the shell itself, it's quite small and it can feel precious, right? And the turtles inside can also add a kind of preciousness, but also the texture of the shell kind of removes too much preciousness. It makes it a little bit rougher around the edges, and I really like that it's a little bit more complex in that way. And again, like I just have another, like, you know, wider shot of just a few other works that I wanted to call out where I was seeing themes of tenderness playing out, even if it's not in a figurative form, right? Or again, in nature, I think there's a lot of work around nature and just like the beauty of the way light hits, how soft it is, or these like scrapings in the sand here, or the shells, right? The collection of these shells. And again, that going back to sort of similar to the turtle piece, that sort of preciousness that's there. I just felt like there was an ability for a lot of artists in this show to zoom in and to notice these details of the everyday, but to really frame those details in a way that communicates care, that communicates a softness, that communicates almost a fragility in a way, a kind of fragility that is to be like, I don't want to say protected, not protected, but it's definitely to be deeply considered. And then this is just another shot again of earlier, the wall that I'd shown you with the work of the bear and the gestural movement. But again, I just wanted to sort of continue on that idea of fragmentation. And in my artist, or it's not artist statement, I'm sorry, juror statement, I did not name fragmentation as one of the themes, but after putting this presentation together, I'm like, whoa, I should have had that in there because it is. You know, there are bodies that are fragmented. There's actual, in a lot of the abstract work, there's a fragmentation. There's shapes that are, you know, breaking apart or shapes that are colliding together. I mean, this is also, you know, these works here, you know, the way that parts come together or are disjointed, I feel like I saw in a lot of the different works, and even a fragmentation in nature too. So that's something that I wanted to show this slide and also add that if I could add that in as another theme that really surfaced for me, I would. And this photograph, you know, of like what looks like to me, I read it as people walking down a stairwell, but the upper bodies are cut off. So again, fragmentation, but then there's also the uncanny and the sort of awesomeness of photography to be able to capture that in the everyday, in the mundane, you know? So, and let's see, I feel like, there we go. I was like, I know I've got a little bit more here. So this is another shot, again, of the installation, and also just like beautiful symmetry with certain forms that Jay was able to really bring out in the way that this corner was hung and installed. But again, just sort of calling forth the same themes that I've been talking about. I also wanted to point that out in this work in particular by Amanda Reese, Stripes. And this work for me was funny. It was humorous too. And the reason it was humorous is because this piece made me think of like a selfie in a way, like the sort of posing that happens for a selfie. There's certain angle, like I'm terrible at taking selfies, but I've learned from people who are really good that there are certain angles and a certain way you hold your face towards the camera to get this particular like look. And it reminded me of that. But then what is like juxtaposed with that is the material. I mean, if you look, you have to see this in person. The threading and the beading and the detail. To me, I just couldn't help but think about the difference between like a technology like your cell phone and then like a different kind of technology like thread and beads that, to see those two things sort of coming together for me or in my reading, I thought that this was brilliant, like just an exquisite portrait. And also, and there's another portrait down below by the same artist. If we go back or circle back to that idea of like vulnerability, I often look for vulnerability and tenderness in portraits, just trying to catch a little bit of the sitter or the model, a rawness that might be an undercurrent in the portrait. And I felt like that was captured in this artist's work. And I would argue that that sort of undercurrent of rawness came through in a lot of different works that focused on the human body. I mean, even this piece here, and I'm sorry I didn't ask for a close-up, so it's hard to see, but it's two hands holding what looks like it looks to me like a bird's nest, but also like that gesture in and of itself, and the kind of tenderness that's there, the softness that's there, but also the fragility and vulnerability that's there. So I feel like at this point now I'm just repeating words, but I do really think that there was something really awesome that happened this year. And I mean, I can't speak to other years, I can only speak to this year, but there was something really awesome that happened with a lot of the works that were submitted and these sort of cross conversations that different artists were having, which for me as an artist is a relief. It's such a comfort to know that artists are creating, especially during a time like this. It's a comfort to know that people are making when others aren't watching. And that to me is really, really important. And then the fact that people were willing to share that practice, you know, over 100 artists were willing to share and to open up. And that's not an easy thing. I think to be an artist and to create work, it requires a lot of, not to be like corny because I'm wearing this courage shirt, but I think it actually takes a lot of courage to show up every day, or maybe not every day, to show up when you can, right? Whenever you can steal time for yourself, and to make work, to show up when things hurt and to still make work, to show up when you're feeling a moment of joy and to make work, to show up through different circumstances and to put that down on paper, or to put that in thread, or to put that in, you know, metal. I feel like there's a lot of courage there. And this show for me was an absolute treat because I got to sit in a room filled with all of that. And I got to take that in and spend time. So, and I believe, oh yeah, sorry, I thought I was done. I'm not done. I also wanted to point this work out. Again, just a mixing of materials that juxtaposes, you know, something that can be quite hard with a kind of fragility with the porcelain there, the glass. Again, I think that a lot of the artists were very carefully thinking about these juxtapositions and how they show up in the everyday and then how they show up in the work. Okay, I'm glad I got to end on that note with the hand and the pairing there. But ultimately, I encourage, if you haven't gotten to go see the show, or if you're able to, if you're in the area, to please step in and see it. It's a very grounding experience to sit with so many different artists and practices and to see these conversations taking place, shared conversations. And again, it's very hopeful. It was a huge pleasure and privilege for me to be able to do this. I'm just getting my bearings and just getting started in curatorial work and trying to figure out what that means for me in my larger practice. And I really hope that my future experiences are as good as this, because this really was a lot of fun. And I remember walking out of the gallery and feeling exhausted, but feeling fired up, just feeling ready to take a lot of what I had seen and a lot of the care that went into things, and to bring that into my own practice, to bring that care and to bring that perseverance into my practice. So I'm hoping that that really resonates with others who get to see the show, and that they leave and that they're ready to go into their studios and create, or if they don't create, that maybe they're inspired to go and create, and to see so many different methods for creation, so many different languages, right? I mean, you can paint, you can photograph, you can collage, you can sculpt, you can use found objects, assemblage. I feel like there are so many different ways of creating that are present in the exhibition that I'm also hoping people will walk away with. And with that, I'll stop talking. That was like, I can go on forever and talk, so I'll stop sharing my screen really quick.
Jalisa, thank you. That was fantastic. And having been in the gallery with you during those 3 hours, and now hearing the way you've described these themes that, I have to be honest, weren't fully apparent to me until now. You've brought another depth and another layer for me to this exhibition. And it really, we're all going through really challenging times, and art perseveres, and you've brought that to light for us. And it's also been a real honor for me to work with you at this point in your career, because Northwind Art is about supporting artists and arts professionals in every stage of their career. And so I feel really fortunate, because I think you're going places in a lot of wonderful different directions. And so the fact that we were able to work with you this early is a real honor. So thank you for that. I do have to mention that the bead artist portrait is Azalea Reese. It is my fault that I got Azalea's name wrong. Azalea, I apologize 1,000 times. I think I blame autocorrect. Azalea is such a beautiful name. It is Azalea Reese who did the beaded portrait. So just wanted to check the record on that one. I do apologize. So now we will bring up I will share my screen, and we will have the award winners that Jalisa will read off here. Here we go. Okay, so our awards, are you ready, Jalisa?
Yes, I'm just pulling up I have my paper with the names. Okay, I'm ready to go.
Here we go. Three merit awards, and then the Juror's Choice Award. Here we go. First merit award. Can everybody see? We seen it? Yeah. Peg Masters, Land of Mystery. Congratulations, Peg. Next, John Lizwinko, Fish Soup, Collage. The third merit award, Azalea Reese, not Amanda. I apologize again. Azalea Reese, Stripes. And the Jurors Award.
And the Jurors Award is George Wilhelm, Woman's Torso Brooch.
Congratulations, everyone. And here are all the award winners in one slide. And I will stop sharing now. Congratulations, everyone. And let's open up the floor to question and answer. So if you would unmute yourself, we can get some questions answered if you've got any. Anybody with a question? You can unmute and show your video.
I'd like to say something.
Hi, Paul. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure as a new juror this year myself, I can't imagine what she had to go through to pick these people, and her rendition of the show and the curator and stuff and your help. Thank you. I'm one artist out of the bunch. Thank you. I appreciate your help.
Thank you. That's so good to hear. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And we look forward to more of this.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
I really appreciated your talk and weaving all those works together. And I was one of the last people bringing work in. So at 110 people, my socks were blown off, and thinking of you pulling something together out of that, and hearing Jay said there's enough work here for 4 shows. And I just really appreciated your talk. That was really interesting. And I could imagine you walking around until, and picking out words. I thought that was I would not have known, like, where do you start? What do you do? So it was, thank you. You did a wonderful job. It's a beautiful show. It's fun.
Thank you. Thank you. And I will say that this process was very intuitive for me. It was like the words and the themes hadn't really revealed themselves until after I had selected everything. And it was a lot of circling and then sitting with things and being like, well, what is it about this? And like just internal dialogue and examination about why I'm reacting the way I am to a particular work.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jalisa. My name's Kate, and I really enjoyed your talk about the work and how you chose those themes. I was curious, we all see so much artwork online, and I think it's unusual these days to get, actual submissions that you can see. So can you talk about that a little bit? How it was to see, do you think it was easier to choose work because it was actually physically there with you rather than, I know I have a friend who's juried a couple of shows, and she said, it's just like screen after screen after screen of stuff they have to look at. And I would think that would be a very different experience.
Yes, I have to say that, so I haven't juried a show looking at things online, but I've sat on like different committees for like applications for things and had to look through a lot of portfolios that way, all online. And there's just like a numbingness that happens after a while. Like you have to take a lot of breaks. You really have to like spread it out. And you just have to be very aware of when you're just getting screen fatigue. And this was different. There was still an overwhelmingness, but it wasn't like screen fatigue. If anything, it was just being a richness. Like that's the way I can describe it. It's a richness that's there that you get in person that you don't on the screen. Being able to see the surface, the materiality of something, being able to see things like next to each other in physical space. I mean, I did do a lot of, as I was making selections, I was able to pick things up and put things together. And Jay was so encouraging. Jay was like, okay, move things further in so we can see everything together. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. We can like group things and see them sitting in relationship to each other. And that's just something that it's hard to do, if at all, on a screen. So for me, being there in person, I would have not wanted to do this virtually. It would have been really, really difficult. It was way better to be there and to see the work and to share space, physical space with the work. And also just seeing the sizes, and there's just so many conversations that take place, the size, the surface of the work. And, it's so much easier to get a grasp on all that when you're there in person.
Yeah, scale is particularly hard to judge online, I think, when you're just looking at something. So thank you very much.
Anybody else? Any questions? Okay, well, it was so wonderful. We had, I think, 50 people at the height of the talk. So that might be a record, especially with Zoom fatigue happening these days. Jalisa, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone for coming out. And thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Northwind Art. This was an awesome experience. The bar is set pretty high for my future curatorial, endeavors.
Hey, well, stay in touch and we'll be watching for you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Take good care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks,